Alright, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video. I hope you guys all had a very good Thanksgiving with your families. Hope you guys took a nice little break from the markets. As you guys can tell by the title, I'm going to be going back and ranking all of the best Ifvg setups of the New York AM session during this past week. And this is going to be an upcoming series for now. So every Saturday, I'm going to be going back and ranking the setups, even the ones that failed, right? Because obviously not every single one works. We get manipulated sometimes, and that's perfectly fine. They can be an A+ setup, and we can still get stopped out. So it is what it is. But yeah, this is going to be a new upcoming series where I go back and rank all the setups. So if you guys are kind of hesitant and didn't really know if that was a good setup or not, don't worry. I'm here to tell you if it is or isn't. And the reason I'm doing this is because not every loss is bad and not every win is good. So there's always a case where we can learn from our losses and even learn from our wins as well. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the video. All right, so starting off on Monday, November 24th, what do we see right before market opens? Well, price retraces down into a 5-minute bullish fair value gap. Okay, and then what do we get coming out of that right at market open? Well, we get this 1-minute Ifvg. And the reason why I didn't enter off this and why this was about a C minus setup for me is because not only do we take the internal high, but it wasn't the highest time frame inversion in our lower legs, right? So I need to see the highest time frame inversion on the 1 through 5 minute. Okay, we got a 1-minute Ifvg right here, but we are also inside of a 5-minute bearish gap. So that is why that is about a C+ setup. And then same thing goes with this 5-minute Ifvg right here. Not only do we take out the internal high, and not only do we take out New York PM high, which was right here, but we are also inside of now these bearish gaps to the left of us. Okay, and look how premium this candle is as well. So obviously, we're showing no signs of bearish structure at this time being. Where is my measurement tool? Here it is. But this candle is a 168-point candle. So if I want to go long here, what do I need to see? I need to see a pullback into like a 5 or 15-minute fair value gap. And then I can go ahead and possibly target this unfilled 15-minute gap above us right here. And well, that's exactly what ended up happening. Let's go to the 5-minute real quick. What do we end up creating? Well, we end up creating a 5-minute bullish fair value gap, just like I said. And then on the way down into it, what else do we end up doing? Well, we end up creating all this low resistance liquidity that's going to give us a good target if we do get an inversion. Okay, and not only that, what do we get? We get a clear manipulation like low. We're sweeping out all these lows right here. Okay, so from here, now I'm looking to see this 1-minute Ifvg or this 1-minute fair value gap to get inverse. Don't get it here. Okay, when do we finally get it? With this 959 candle. Now I would rate this about an A setup because we have clear targets ahead with this LRL and this internal high, and we're delivering from a 5-minute bullish fair value gap, and we're already bullish as it is. However, the reason why it's not an A+ is because we have now these stacked lows at our stop loss, and it wasn't really a clean inversion, right? If I need to see like an A+ or S tier setup, I want to see a tap into a fair value gap with a clear manipulation leg and then an instant reaction off of it. You see how we kind of like rejected it right here? Didn't inverse it, we kind of edged it, came back down, started creating these lows, and then we finally inversed it right here. That is the only reason why I wouldn't give it an A+ setup. Now, you could have played this one of two ways. You could have either went break even at the internal high and had your take profit towards this unfilled 15-minute gap with your stops right here, or you could have just went for a 1-to-1 and targeted the internal high for a full take profit, and that would have played out in about 2.5 or so minutes. And again, if you would have targeted this unfilled 15-minute, I believe it would have been a break even trade. Yeah, so we got break even right here. However, what ended up getting created again? Well, we now ended up creating a new 5-minute bullish fair value gap, okay, that we're still not disrespecting, so we're probably still in bullish structure, gonna go towards this unfilled 15-minute gap. And if you guys build conviction, right, it all just depends on conviction. If you guys have conviction that we are going to go higher, okay, what are we waiting for here? Well, we're waiting for a clean inversion out of it. So there was nothing in this leg right here. So the most A+ setup I would possibly want to see now is a resweep of this low, of this 5-minute intermediate low, and then an inversion out of it. However, I don't think we got the resweep of the intermediate low. No, we kind of were just chopping around, and then we got this 1-minute inversion right here. So I would rate this about a B+. We still were inside of that 5-minute gap, rejecting it, and then we got this 1-minute Ifvg out of it. However, like I said, if I wanted to see like an A++ setup or an S tier setup, I would want to see a resweep of this 5-minute intermediate low, or possibly even an SMT at that low as well if ES came and did it. But ES did not sweep out that low either. There was no SMT, so that doesn't matter. That's what brings the rating down just a little bit more. But we did have clear targets above. Not only did we have this LR again, we had this internal high, and then still that unfilled 15-minute fair value gap that I was talking about in the last example. Okay, so in this example, we could have either targeted about just under a 1-to-1. If you wanted a 1-to-1, maybe it would have looked something like this for the internal high. However, I was pretty convicted that we were going to go towards the unfilled 15-minute, so I would have just went break even at the internal high. And what ends up happening, kind of took a little while, but then we ended up getting there. It was a little chop sesh, and then we rejected this 1 minute for value gap and continued higher. Hit our break-even point. It didn't stop us out at break-even, and that would have been a W trade overall. So jumping on over to Tuesday, what is this, the 25th of November, I'm going to start off on the higher time frames because it's going to make a lot more sense as to why this first trade failed. So we did have an SMT on the higher time frames with the previous day's New York PM highs. However, what did we end up coming into? Well, we ended up coming into this 4-hour bullish gap right here. We also came into this 1-hour bullish gap, and then not only that, we also came into equilibrium of this range as well. So with that being said, this SMT is now completed since we hit our draws lower, right? So now I want to see rejections off this area to continue higher towards all these relatively equal highs, because this SMT should no longer matter since we came down and hit those PD rays. All right, so keep that in mind when I go over this first trade. So as you can see, right at market open, we manipulated lower right into everything I just talked about, this 4-hour, the 1-hour, the equilibrium. And then we came up into this 5-minute gap and got a 5-minute inversion lower. And a lot of you, here, let me just delete this so it's more obvious. A lot of you probably took this and got stepped out or stopped out. And the reason is because there was no reason to go lower back towards this low. We did not need a resweep of this low. There's no reason for price to come and continue back towards this low. So that is the reason why that failed. Also, the reason why I faded this is because when we got that, a unfilled 15-minute opened up, and I didn't want us to come and tap into that 15-minute and then continue lower. So if I really wanted to take shorts, I would have just waited for that 15-minute to get tapped and then see a rejection out of it. And if we rejected the 15-minute, then cool, that would have offered more conviction that, okay, maybe we are going to go lower. But let's say we entered off that 5-minute inversion, our stops would have been above this 1 minute for value gap. If we truly were bearish on the day, I would want to see this 1 minute bearish for value gap get respected and continue lower towards this this intermediate low. Sorry. But we just did not end up getting it. However, I ended up taking a trade the opposite way. We ended up coming down into this 3-minute for value gap, and I was pretty convicted that we were going to go higher, at least towards these relatively equal highs at market open. So these 3 minutes were my condition. I said if I want to take longs, I want to see both of these get tapped into, because we didn't leave a wick on either one of them. So I wanted to see both of these 3-minute gaps get tapped into and then see a rejection off of that, and that's exactly what we got right here. We got a 3-minute Ifvg where you can put your stops right there, or your entry point right there, and then your stops right below this last 1 minute for value gap. Because again, if we truly are going to be bullish, I want to see this 1 minute gap get respected, and that is ended up what we ended up doing. You could have went break even at this unfilled 15-minute gap and held towards these relatively good highs at market open. You would have been chopped around a little bit. It wouldn't have been break even because we did edge the 15-minute, and then we would have just missed TP by maybe a tick or two. However, I would give this setup about an A, and the previous one just a B+. And the reason why it is a B+, even though it looks clean internally, was because, again, there was no reason for price to come back down into here, and these SMTs no longer mattered because the objective was already met. So lastly, finishing off with Wednesday, what is this, the 26th. I'm not going to do Thursday or Friday because Thursday was Thanksgiving, and Friday the markets closed at 12, so it's literally just chop anyway. But there was 3 potential setups that I seen that were fairly clean. Obviously, 2 of them failed, and 1 of them ended up working out. So let's get right into it. And I'm sure some of you guys took this first 4-minute as well. But the reason why I took the short is because not only did we have a previous day high SMT, but we also had a previous week high SMT. And we were also rejecting from some gaps to the left of us. So not only did we have those 2 high time from SMTs, but we had a 5-minute for value gap right here, and then there was also a 15-minute for value gap in that same area. So we came up, we tapped into it, we then got a 4-minute inversion. Looks pretty good, right? Stops would have been, for me, at the top of this 1-minute gap, just in case we wanted to come up, fill it, and then continue lower. And let's see how this ended up playing out. Got stopped out almost immediately, right? So what ends up happening, we end up getting a resweep of these highs, and then what do we get? We get another 4-minute Ifvg. So this first one, I'd rate it about an A, and the second one is probably the best setup of the week. It's going to be a S tier setup. Not only did we get a resweep, we also have still those 2 high time frame SMTs. We're still rejecting that 5 and 15-minute for value gap to the left of us. So this was the best setup of the week, targeting this unfilled for value gap on the 15-minute, along with all this LRL to the left of us. We also had 5-minute equal lows right here. So clear draws, best setup of the week. I would give this about an S tier, ran straight to TP. And then what do we end up doing? There was another setup that I'm sure some of you guys also probably got manipulated out of. We end up coming down, hitting this 15-minute gap, and I'm sure since some of you guys seen this previous week high and the previous day high SMT, that we were probably going to continue lower. Well, we end up hitting this 15-minute for value gap, and then coming up and hitting this 5-minute gap. And then what do we end up seeing? Well, we end up seeing a 1-minute inversion. And the reason why I'm going to give this about a B- setup, because not only did we generate LRL at our stop loss, but we also haven't inversed this 15-minute gap to the downside yet. And also on top of that, I know also we have an SMT with Asia lows as well. So here's that, right? We swept out Asia lows, and then we did not sweep out Asia lows on NQ. So we have a SMT with Asia lows. So therefore, there is no reason for price to come back down and revisit this area. These high time frame SMTs now complete since we hit both of these 15-minute for value gaps, and now we're starting to see a rejection off of them and probably going to continue higher. Okay, there's no reason for price to come back down here. Again, why? Because we have a Asia SMT at the lows. All right, so that will be all for this week's recap on the Ifvgs. If I missed anything or if I can improve on anything, please leave it down in the comments. I'm always open to improving my videos. Obviously, this was the first recap I've done on raking the Ifvgs. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead, leave them in the comments. I do read every single comment. If you guys want to up your allocation, use code LoeGpa. On Lucid Trades, I'll leave a link in the description, and free Discord is in the description as well. So go check that out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope we can help you out. And yeah, enjoy your weekend. I will catch y'all boys on Monday.